The morning light filtered through Eunji's apartment window in Seoul as she prepared her tea. Her movements were slow and deliberate, each motion flowing into the next like water. She had been doing this same thing every morning for the past 20 years. Wake at 5, meditate for 1 hour, drink tea while watching the city wake up, teach at the dojo by 7 in the morning. This was her life, and she was content with it. Eunji was 42 years old. She had strong shoulders and calm eyes. Her face showed lines of concentration, not worry. She had dedicated her entire life to martial arts, not for fame or money, but because it was the only way she knew how to live with purpose. She taught students how to move with grace and power. She taught them how to calm their minds and control their bodies. Most of all, she taught them that strength came from discipline, not from anger. That morning, everything changed. The holographic announcements appeared suddenly in the sky above Seoul. They were huge, visible from everywhere in the city. People stopped walking and looked up. Cars pulled over to the sides of roads. The announcements were not from the government of Korea or any government on Earth. They came from something called the Universal Integration System. The message was simple but shocking. Earth had been discovered by a galactic civilization. Humans were not alone. The galaxy was full of intelligent species, thousands of them, and they had been waiting for Earth to reach a certain level of development. Now that humans had proven they could travel to other planets and split atoms, the time had come for integration. Humanity would now join the cosmic community. Within hours, the announcements gave more details. The system had analyzed human capabilities compared to other species in the galaxy. The results were presented with no emotion, no sympathy, just pure facts. Humans ranked 47th in combat capability among 3,000 registered species. They ranked 89th in technological advancement. They ranked 156th in psychic potential. The system assigned humanity an official classification: Earthborn. This word would become important. This word would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The classification meant that humans were useful for certain tasks. They could work in factories. They could mine minerals on dangerous planets. They could serve as soldiers in wars between other species. But humans could not be leaders. Humans could not make important decisions. Humans were tools, not equals. Eunji watched the announcements while sitting on her floor. She did not panic like many others were doing. She did not phone her friends or family. She simply breathed, as she had learned to do. In any situation, no matter how strange or difficult, the breath was always there. The breath was always the same. But within 3 days, soldiers came to her apartment building. They were not Korean soldiers. They were not even human. These soldiers were called mechanical enforcers, and they had been sent to collect all human citizens classified as physically capable. They were conscripting young people and healthy adults. The government of Korea could do nothing to stop them. Eunji heard them coming up the stairs to her apartment. She heard their heavy footsteps and their mechanical breathing. They knocked on her door with a sound like metal hitting wood. She opened it without fear. The 3 enforcers looked at her with sensors instead of eyes. They were made of shining metal and hard materials. One of them spoke in a voice that sounded like electricity. Eunji Park, you have been identified as physically capable. You are required to report for military conscription under the Galactic Defense Force. You will gather your things and come with us now. Eunji looked at each of them without expression. She could see the logic in their movements. She could see where the power cables ran and where the joints were weakest. But she understood that fighting would be pointless. There were thousands of these creatures, maybe millions. There was no victory in resistance, only pain. I will need 5 minutes, she said. You have 3 minutes, the enforcer replied. Eunji gathered a small bag with extra clothing. She took her journal where she had written her thoughts for 30 years. She left her apartment knowing she would not return. She followed the enforcers down the stairs and into a vehicle that did not touch the ground, but floated in the air using technology she did not understand. Other humans were being collected from other buildings. She saw them being loaded into the same floating vehicle. An old man, a young woman, a teenager who was crying. They were all being taken to the same place. They were all classified as Earthborn now. They were all property of the Galactic Defense Force. As the vehicle rose into the sky and left Earth behind, Yunji watched her planet grow smaller. She could see the curve of the world. She could see the blue oceans and the brown mountains. She wondered if she would ever see it again. She wondered if any of these humans would survive what was coming. A boy sitting next to her asked quietly, "What is going to happen to us?" Yunji looked at him. He was 17, maybe 18 years old. He was scared, but trying not to show it. He reminded her of her students at the dojo. "We will survive," she told him. "That is what we must do now. We must survive and learn and become stronger. We have no choice but to continue forward." The boy did not look convinced, but he nodded anyway. The vehicle continued rising until Earth was just a small blue dot in the darkness of space. Yunji closed her eyes and began to breathe. She breathed slowly and deeply. She had faced many difficult situations in her life, but nothing like this. Yet in her mind, she remained calm. She was afraid, yes, but fear was just another thing to observe, not something to be controlled by. Fear was like a cloud passing across the sky. It appeared and then it disappeared. It changed nothing about the sky itself. She did not know that a Corellian commander named Teo was watching her file. She did not know that her neural patterns had been recorded by the system. She did not know that she would become the most important person in human history. She only knew that she had to breathe, moment by moment, and face whatever came next with an open mind and a strong spirit. The vehicle continued through the stars, carrying a load of confused and frightened humans toward a fate they could not imagine. The training facility was not a place. It was more like a small city floating in space. It orbited around a star that was dying. The star was old and tired, and it gave a strange red light that made everything look like it was burning. The facility was enormous, with buildings connected by tunnels and bridges. Thousands of young aliens lived here. Hundreds of them were human. Yunji arrived at the facility after 3 weeks of travel through space. She had watched the stars change and shift through the window of the transport ship. She had learned the names of the other humans aboard. Most of them were teenagers or young adults in their 20s. They were scared and confused. Yunji said very little. She mainly watched and listened. When they arrived, soldiers separated them by species. The humans were sent to a dormitory with 50 other new recruits. The dormitory was clean and cold. The walls were white and empty. There were beds arranged in rows. Yunji was given a bed in the corner next to a window. Through the window, she could see the red light of the dying star. Her first bunkmate was a creature called Min-Ah. Min-Ah was from a species called the Helians. Her skin was made of something like crystal that caught the light and made rainbow patterns. She had 4 eyes and no mouth, as humans understood it. She communicated by making vibrations in the air that the translation device in Yunji's ear converted to words. Min-Ah was assigned to train as a combat soldier, just like Yunji. When Min-Ah first saw Yunji, she made a vibration that the translator made sound like laughter. "You are Earthborn," Min-Ah said. "We learned about your species. You are very weak. Why are you here? You will die in the first week of training." Yunji did not answer this. She simply lay on her bed and began her meditation breathing. She did this every evening, as she had done for 30 years. She breathed in slowly through her nose. She held the breath for a count of 4. She released it slowly through her mouth. She repeated this process for 1 hour, while Mina watched with something like confusion. Across the room was a creature called Kyo. Kyo was a Zentorian, which meant he had 4 arms instead of 2. Each arm was thick and powerful. Kyo's body was made of muscles piled on muscles. He was 3 meters tall and had gray skin covered with natural armor. Kyo also laughed when he saw Yunji. "Look at this small thing," he said in a voice like rocks grinding together. "A human. Do they think this will fight?" Yunji's first day of training began at dawn. She was taken with 50 other recruits to a massive training ground. The ceiling was very high and the floor was enormous. A commander stood in the center. His name was Garthon, and he was from a species that looked like a combination of a bird and a lizard. He had wings and claws and teeth that were very sharp. "You are all soldiers now," Garthon told them. "The Galactic Defense Force does not care what species you are or where you come from. The enemy does not care either. The enemy only cares about killing you. So your job is to learn how to move, how to use weapons, and how to not die." For the first week, the training was basic. Run, jump, climb, throw things. The exercises were designed to be hard for all species, but different species found different things difficult. The Helians moved very fast, but were not very strong. The Zentorians were incredibly strong, but not very fast. The humans were somewhere in the middle in everything, which was both good and bad. Yunji observed the training carefully. She watched how the other creatures moved. She studied their weaknesses. She saw that Kyo was very fast, despite his size. She saw that Mina had incredible balance. She noticed that the Varthian trainees, who were tall and had natural weapons, did not know how to move efficiently. They used too much energy. During the second week, hand-to-hand combat training began. This was where things became interesting. The commander paired creatures to fight each other. When it came time for Yunji to fight, the commander smiled with his sharp teeth. He decided to pair her with Kyo, the enormous Zentorian with 4 arms. "This should be quick," the commander said. "We will see why humans have such a low combat ranking." Yunji and Kyo faced each other in a circle drawn on the ground. Kyo cracked his 4 knuckles and looked amused. This would not be a real fight. This would be an execution made into entertainment. Kyo moved forward with a speed that surprised the other humans watching. His upper left arm swung at Yunji like a tree branch falling. Yunji did not think. Her body responded to years of training. She moved to the side, and Kyo's arm passed inches from her face. His momentum carried him forward. She used his own force against him, grabbing his arm and using it to control his balance. Before Kyo could stop her, she was behind him, and her hand was pressed against a place on his back where 2 of his 4 arms connected. This was a weak spot. In a real fight, a strike here could break bones. Kyo tried to spin around, but Yunji moved with him. She was always at his weak point. She was always out of reach of his powerful fists. Kyo became frustrated. He began to swing harder and faster, but he was only tiring himself out. His breathing became heavy. His movements became wild instead of controlled. Yunji waited. She breathed slowly and calmly. She did not panic. She did not rush. She simply waited for the moment when Kyo would lose his balance. When that moment came, she moved. With perfect timing and perfect technique, she shifted her weight and redirected Kyo's own charging power. The Zentorian fell to the ground with a crash that shook the training facility. Kyo remained on the ground, breathing hard. He could not believe what had happened. He could not believe that a small human female had defeated him so easily. But more shocking was that she was not even breathing hard. She stood completely calm, as if nothing had happened. The other trainees stared in silence. Mina's crystal skin changed colors, which was apparently her version of showing surprise. The commander, Garthon, made a sound like a bird cawing. It took Yunji a moment to realize he was laughing. But it was not mean laughter. It was the laughter of someone impressed by something unexpected. That night, something strange happened. The system, which recorded everything that happened in the training facility, sent a message to Commander Teo. The message included the video of Yoonji's fight with Kyo. It included her neural patterns. It included a note marked, "Urgent, Anomaly Detected." Commander Teo was a Corellian. His species had led the Galactic Defense Force for 10,000 years. He had commanded ships in battles across the universe. He had seen thousands of soldiers train and fight. But he had never seen anything like this before. This small human had moved with perfect technique. She had used her opponent's strength against them. She had shown knowledge that should not have existed in someone with such a low combat ranking. Teo made a decision right then. He would watch this human called Yoonji very carefully. He had a feeling that something very important was happening, something that the system had not yet understood. News of Yoonji's victory over Kyo spread through the training facility quickly. Other humans began to watch her during training sessions. For the first time since arriving at the facility, they felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps they were not completely worthless. Perhaps they could survive after all. But the Galactic Council had different ideas. The Council was made of representatives from the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. They did not like the idea that humans might be stronger than the system said they were. The Council decided that Earth needed to be taught a lesson. They decided to send a challenge to the training facility. The challenge came in the form of a Varthian warrior named Kyle. Kyle was not just any warrior. He was a champion. His species, the Varthians, had been bred for combat for over 300 years. Each Varthian was stronger and faster than the one before. Kyle was the result of 300 years of genetic perfection. He had never lost a battle. He had never been wounded. His blade was made of a material so dense and sharp that it could cut through the hull of a spaceship. Kyle arrived at the training facility with an official announcement from the Galactic Council. He was there to prove that the Earthborn species was exactly as weak as the system said. There would be a public combat demonstration. One human would fight against him. All species would be able to watch and broadcast the fight to every corner of the galaxy. The message was clear. Humans would lose, and the galaxy would remember this loss. The Galactic Council chose Yoonji. They had seen the record of her victory over Kyo, and they wanted to crush her in public. They wanted to remove any hope that humans might have developed. Commander Teo tried to object, but the council did not listen to him. This had already been decided. Yoonji learned about the match 3 days before the fight. She did not show fear. She did not ask questions. She simply continued her normal routine. She trained. She meditated. She ate. She slept. She acted as if this was just another day. But Minna noticed that something was different. The Hellion female approached Yoonji in the dormitory one evening. "You are going to die tomorrow," Minna said without any emotion. "Kyle has been fighting for 300 years. He has never been hurt. You have been training for 3 weeks. This is not a fight. This is an execution." Yoonji looked at Minna and then back out the window at the red star. "Yes," she said simply. "Probably." "Then why do you not run?" Minna asked. "Why do you not try to escape?" "Where would I go?" Yoonji replied. "I am in a facility in space. I have nowhere to escape to. And even if I could escape, my family is on Earth. The system would punish them for my actions. So I will stay. I will fight. What else is there to do?" Minna made a vibration that sounded like a human sigh. But there was something new in her crystal skin. It was not rainbow colors anymore. It was dimmer, more like sadness. "I was wrong about you," Minna said. "I thought you were weak because you are small. But you are not weak. You are brave in a way that is strange to me." The day of the fight arrived. The arena was a massive dome filled with thousands of beings from hundreds of different species. The Varthian had requested an audience, and the Galactic Council had made sure everyone knew about it. The fight was being broadcast to billions of creatures across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see humanity be proven as inferior. Yunji entered the arena wearing simple white clothing. She had no weapons. She had no armor. She had no technology to help her. This was what the Council wanted. They wanted the galaxy to see a completely helpless human facing a perfect warrior. Kyle entered next. His blade hummed with energy. His armor was black and shining. His movements were like a predator that had never known fear. The crowd made sounds of excitement and anticipation. This would not be a contest. This would be a demonstration of absolute superiority. The fight lasted 14 seconds. Kyle moved forward with the confidence of someone who had never lost. His blade came up and forward, aiming directly at Yunji's chest. It was a simple attack, but with Kale's speed and strength, there was no way to defend against it. The blade would pass through flesh and bone. It would end the fight before the human could even react. But Yunji did not react the way Kale expected. She did not try to run. She did not try to dodge. Instead, she moved directly toward the blade. At the last second, her hands came up with impossible speed. Her left hand grabbed the blade itself. The molecular density edge, which could cut through anything, came to a complete stop against her palm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Yunji moved her right hand. It came up in a line from her hip to a point just below Kale's shoulder, where his armor ended and his body was exposed. There was no power behind the move. There was no muscle or strength. There was only precision. There was only technique developed and perfected over 40 years of training. Kale's body went rigid. His blade fell from his grip. His eyes went blank. He collapsed to the ground without making a sound. He was not dead, but he was completely paralyzed. A strike to the exact point between his strongest armor had disrupted the neural signals running through his body. The arena was absolutely silent. 30 billion beings watched the broadcast and did not make a sound. The Varthian champion, the creature who had never been defeated, had been beaten by a small human in 14 seconds. The Galactic Council's message had been received, but it was not the message they intended to send. The system's assessment protocols began to crash. The computers could not process what had happened. The mathematical models that had classified humans as weak could not explain this victory. The system rebooted and began to send out a new message. It appeared on every screen, in every language, across all of known space. Classification error detected. Earthborn. Revised assessment pending. These 7 words changed everything. In that moment, humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer certain. The rules had changed. The system itself had admitted that it had been wrong. And somewhere on Earth, in a dojo in Seoul, students gathered around a screen and cried because they understood that their teacher had just saved their entire species. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 48 hours after Yunji defeated Kyle. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Council did not have a clear answer to a problem. Everything they understood about combat and species capability had been proven wrong. They demanded answers, and they wanted them immediately. Commander Teo was brought to the Council chambers to present his investigation. He had spent the previous 2 days analyzing every second of Yunji's fight. He had studied her movements. He had examined her neural patterns. He had interviewed her 3 times. The Corellian commander walked into the chamber with files full of data. "The evidence is clear," Teo told the Council. Yunji did not defeat Kale through technology or genetic enhancement. She did not use any illegal weapons or aids. She won through something the system cannot measure properly: adaptability through consciousness. One of the council members, a creature called Zix from the Helian race, made a sound of confusion. "Explain what you mean. How can consciousness defeat genetic perfection?" Teo activated the holographic display. It showed a recording of the fight, but this time it was slowed down to show each individual frame. "Look at this moment," he said, pointing to the frame where Yunji's left hand caught the blade. Kale's speed is 3 times faster than any human should be able to react, but Yunji moved faster. Why? Because she did not react. She predicted. She anticipated where Kyle would attack before he decided to attack. Another council member, a Varthian named Korthax, stood up in anger. This is not possible. The system tested all humans. They all show the same genetic limitations. Yes, Teo agreed. They do. But Yunji had something the others do not have. She had 40 years of experience mastering one specific skill. She had spent 4 decades learning to control her mind and body with absolute precision. Every muscle in her body had been trained to respond to conscious intention. Most species rely on instinct or genetic programming. Humans, it appears, can override their natural limitations through conscious discipline. The council chamber became very quiet. What Teo was suggesting was revolutionary. It meant that any human, given enough training and discipline, could exceed the capabilities of creatures that were genetically superior. It meant that the system's classification of humans as weak was not just inaccurate. It was fundamentally flawed. Zix leaned forward. If this is true, what does it mean for the established order? What does it mean if humans can transcend their supposed limitations? It means everything changes, Teo said. It means humans should not be classified as labor or basic soldiers. It means humans should be trained as commanders and strategists. It means humanity is capable of evolution in ways we did not predict. The council voted. The vote was not unanimous, but the majority agreed. Humanity's official classification was changed. Humans were no longer Earthborn labor marked for basic duties. They were now Earthborn potential, marked for advanced training and development. More importantly, Yunji was offered a position as a trainer and consultant to the Galactic Defense Force. When the Council's announcement was made public, it spread across the galaxy like fire. News channels broadcast the story. Scholars debated the implications. Scientists wanted to study human neural patterns. Every species wanted to understand how this could have happened. But not everyone was happy. Some of the older species, the ones who had enjoyed their position of dominance for millennia, grew fearful. If humans could rise so quickly, could they eventually surpass the established powers? There were whispers of conspiracy. There were calls for action. Within 1 week, the Varthian Empire officially protested to the Council. They demanded that Yunji be executed for her unlawful defeat of their champion. They claimed that she must have used forbidden technology or sorcery. They refused to accept that a human could be superior to a Varthian through any natural means. The Helian Collective also voiced concerns. They proposed that Earth be placed under quarantine. They suggested that humans be prevented from leaving their home planet until their abilities could be fully understood and controlled. The Xanthorian Assembly demanded that all humans currently serving in the Galactic Defense Force be removed and sent back to Earth. They said that allowing humans to fight alongside other species was dangerous and violated ancient treaties. The political situation was becoming dangerous. The galaxy was dividing. Some species saw human advancement as a threat. Other species, like the Corellians, saw it as an opportunity. The Council was close to fracturing. It was Commander Teo's testimony that saved humanity from persecution. He stood before the Council again and spoke with the authority of someone who had commanded armies and led battles for centuries. "I have dedicated my life to studying warfare and strategy," he told the Council. "I can tell you that humanity is not a threat. Humanity is an opportunity. A species that can improve itself through discipline and consciousness is exactly the kind of ally we should want. Yes, humans will become stronger. Yes, they will rise in status. But they will do this through hard work and dedication, not through conquest. This is not a threat. This is hope." His words were powerful. The Council listened. The vote to keep humans in the Galactic Defense Force passed by a small margin. The vote to continue Yunji's training as a commander passed by an even smaller margin. But something important had changed. The galaxy now understood that humans were different. They could adapt. They could improve. They could overcome limitations through force of will. Other human soldiers at the training facility began to demonstrate this same ability. A young man named Sung Ho learned meditation techniques from Yun Ji and began to show incredible tactical thinking in combat simulations. A woman named Ji Woo discovered that through focused concentration, she could resist mental attacks from creatures with psychic abilities. Word spread through the human community across the galaxy. There was something special about human consciousness. There was a technique that Yun Ji was teaching. It was spreading like a code that could unlock hidden potential. Every human who learned it became stronger, faster, smarter. But there was a danger in this knowledge as well. If humans became too strong, if humans rose too quickly, the older species might not accept it peacefully. The galaxy had been stable for thousands of years because everyone accepted the system's classification. Now that stability was cracking, and everyone could feel that something big was coming, something that would change the entire structure of galactic civilization. The attack came without warning. Yunji was in her quarters aboard the military vessel called the Resolve when the alarms began to scream. It took her only 1 second to understand what the sounds meant. War. The Galactic Dominion. The faction of older species that had refused to accept humanity's reclassification had launched a coordinated assault across the entire galaxy. Ships were bombarding human colonies. Every human settlement was under attack. Every transport carrying human soldiers was being hunted. The message was simple and brutal. Humanity would be eliminated before it could grow too strong. Yunji ran to the command center. The screens showed the scope of the attack. Thousands of Dominion ships were attacking from multiple directions. The station where new humans were being trained had been destroyed. The military bases where humans worked had been attacked. It was clear that this was not a spontaneous action. The Dominion had been planning this for months, waiting for the moment when humans were scattered and vulnerable. Commander Teo was already at the command station. His face was grim. He looked at Yunji and nodded. "You are in command," he said simply. "The Council voted on this yesterday. In case of emergency, humans will need a human leader. I am putting you in charge of the defense of the Resolve." Yunji wanted to tell him that she was not trained for this. She wanted to say that she was just a martial arts teacher from Seoul. But she did not say these things. Instead, she sat down and began to give orders. "First," she said, "I need a complete list of all humans currently on this ship. Second, I need access to all military systems. Third, I need to know the capability of every weapon we have. Fourth, I need to establish communication with all other human units still in contact." The next 6 hours were chaos. Dominion fighters attacked the Resolve again and again. The ship's shields held, but barely. Hull sections were compromised. The crew was exhausted. But Yunji moved through the command center with absolute calm. She had spent 40 years learning to control panic and fear. Now all that training was being tested in the most extreme way possible. She coordinated with other human commanders. Sung Ho was commanding fighter squadrons near the Cassian system. He had learned meditation and breathing from Yunji, and he used this calm focus to fly with precision that amazed even experienced alien pilots. Fighter after fighter of the Dominion was taken down by human pilots who moved with perfect synchronization. Jiwoo had been in a military hospital with an injury. When the attack began, she got out of her bed and found a command post. Using her ability to resist mental attacks, she helped protect human soldiers from psychic weapons that would have killed them instantly. Min Ah, the Helian who had once pitied Yunji, was fighting alongside human troops. Her crystalline body was covered in scorch marks from energy weapons, but she refused to leave her position. She was protecting humans like they were her own species. By the end of the first day of fighting, 70% of the attacking Dominion fleet had been destroyed or forced to retreat. It was a miracle. By all calculations, humans should have been wiped out. But instead, they were winning. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. They had been watching the battle from the safety of their headquarters. They had expected humans to lose. They had expected to be sending rescue ships to collect survivors. Instead, they were watching humans defeat an enemy force 10 times their size. The Council voted to officially support humanity against the Dominion. Military reinforcements were sent. Supplies were provided. Within 3 days, the tide had completely turned. The Dominion forces were in full retreat. They were not just being defeated, they were being hunted. Yunji decided that this was the time to end the war completely. She planned a massive assault on the Dominion's main command station in the Cassian system. Sung-Ho would provide air support. Thousands of human soldiers would be transported to the station to attack from within. It would be the largest military operation humanity had ever conducted. 3 weeks after the war began, Yunji stood on the deck of the enemy command station. The battle was raging all around her. Dominion soldiers were dying. Human soldiers were fighting with courage and skill that surprised everyone. The tide of the war was turning. Then she saw him. Vexathar, the Dominion commander, was standing in front of her. He was the one who had given the order to attack humans. He was the one who had tried to commit genocide. His weapons were sophisticated. His armor was advanced. His experience in warfare was ancient and deep. But he had never trained as Yunji had trained. He had never spent 40 years learning to merge mind and body into one perfect instrument. He had relied on technology and genetic superiority. He had never learned what it meant to truly control your own consciousness. They fought in the middle of the command station deck. Other soldiers stopped to watch. Even the war seemed to pause for this moment. Vexthar was faster than Kale had been. He was more experienced. His weapons were better. But he was fighting against someone who understood something he could never understand. He was fighting against the accumulated wisdom of human martial arts passed down from generation to generation. He was fighting against a woman who had learned that the mind could guide the body to places it should never be able to go. In the end, it took only 17 seconds. Yunji moved 2 fingers and stopped the Dominion commander's plasma blade. She moved her hand once and rendered him unconscious. He fell to the ground defeated, just like Kale had fallen. The battle was over. The war was over. Humanity had won. As the dust settled and medics began treating the wounded, Yunji looked out at the stars. She thought about her small dojo in Seoul. She thought about her students practicing taekwondo with dedication and discipline. She thought about how a simple teacher had become the most important person in human history. But she knew that this was not really about her. It was not about one person. It was about what humans could become when they refused to accept limitations. It was about the power of the mind to shape the body. It was about the discipline to keep training even when it seemed pointless. It was about the courage to stand against impossible odds and not give up. Minna walked up to her and made a vibration that meant gratitude in the Helian language. "You saved my species too," Minna said. "If humans had been destroyed, the Dominion would have turned on all species that had supported you. Thank you." Yunji looked at her old friend and smiled. "We are all one species now," Yunji said. "The galaxy is not divided anymore. We are all learning from each other. We are all becoming stronger together." Commander Teo approached and placed a hand on Yunji's shoulder. "The Council wants you to know that humanity's classification has been permanently changed. You are no longer Earthborn. You are now classified as evolved species. Your people will have full rights and representation in the Galactic Council." Yunji looked up at the Corellian commander who had first believed in her. She bowed in the Korean way, with respect and gratitude. The galaxy had changed in these few weeks, and one small woman from Seoul had changed it all by simply refusing to accept the limitations that others had placed on her.